We meet again for Chapter 1, Part 2. The Western businessman was of a rather imposing external appearance, an unusual person with oriental features. He was wearing a turban, and his fingers were adorned with precious rings. The discussion, as usual, centered around the possibilities for cooperation in various fields. The visitor said, among other things, "We would like to buy cedar nuts from you." As he spoke these words, his face and body tightened. His sharp eyes moved from side to side, no doubt studying the reaction of the entrepreneurs present. I remember the incident very well, as even then I wondered why his appearance had changed like that. After the official meeting, the Moscow interpreter, accompanying him, came up to me. She said she would like to speak with me. The businessman made me a confidential proposal. If I could arrange delivery of cedar nuts for him, and they had to be fresh, then I would receive a handsome personal percentage over and above the official price. The nuts were to be shipped off to Turkey for processing into some kind of oil. I said I would think it over. I decided I would find out for myself what kind of oil he was talking about, and I did. On the London market, which sets the standard for world prices, cedar nut oil fetches anywhere up to $500 per kilogram, or 2.2 pounds. Their proposed deal would have given us approximately $2 to $3 for 1 kilogram of cedar nuts. I rang up an entrepreneur I happened to know in Warsaw and asked him whether it might be possible to market such a product directly to the consumer, and whether we could learn the technology involved in its extraction. A month later, he sent me a reply. No way. We weren't able to gain access to the technology, and besides, there are certain Western powers so involved in these issues of yours that it would be better to just forget about it. After that, I turned to my good friend Konstantin Rakunov, a scholar with our Novosibirsk Consumer Cooperative Institute. I bought a shipment of nuts and financed a study, and the laboratories of his institute produced approximately 100 kilograms of cedar nut oil. I also hired researchers who came up with the following information from archival documents. Before the revolution, and even for some time afterward, there was in Siberia an organization known as the Siberian Cooperator. People from this organization traded in oil, including cedar nut oil. They had rather swanky branch offices in Harbin, London, and New York, and rather large Western bank accounts. In fact, prior to the 1917 revolution, Russian exports of cedar nut oil generated 10% of all foreign trade revenues, rivaling such commodities as grain, timber, and furs. After the revolution, the organization eventually collapsed and many of its members went abroad. A member of the Bolshevist government, Leonid Krasin, met with the head of this organization and asked him to return to Russia, but the head of the Siberian Cooperator replied that he would be of more help to Russia if he remained outside its borders. From archival materials, I further learned that cedar oil was made using wooden, and only wooden, presses in many villages of the Siberian taiga. The quality of the cedar oil depended on the season in which the nuts were gathered and how they were processed, but I was unable to determine, either from the archives...
Can we go to the dancing class?
I'm reading. I'll let you know when it's time. I'm reading. Bye. I was unable to determine, either from the archives or the Institute, exactly which season was being indicated. The secret had been lost. There are no healing remedies with properties analogous to those of cedar oil. But perhaps the secret of making this oil had been passed along by one of the emigres, Emigres, to someone in the West? How is it possible that the cedar nuts with the most effective healing properties grow in Siberia, and yet the facility for producing the oil is located in Turkey? After all, Turkey has no cedars like those found in Siberia. And just what Western powers was the Warsaw entrepreneur talking about? Why did he say it would be better to just forget about this issue? Might not these powers be smuggling this product with its extraordinary healing properties out of our Russian Siberian taiga? Why, with such a treasure here at home with such effective properties, a treasure known for centuries, for millennia even, do we spend millions and maybe billions of dollars buying up foreign medicines and swallow them up like half-crazed people? How is it that we have lost the knowledge known to our forebears? Our recent forebears, yet, ones who lived in our century. And what happened? And what about the Bible's description of that extraordinary happening over 2,000 years ago? What kind of unknown powers are trying so earnestly to erase our forebears' knowledge from our own memories? Oh, you'd better stick to minding your own business, we're told. Yes, they are trying to wipe it out, and indeed they are succeeding. I was seized by a fit of anger. I checked, and yes, cedar nut oil is sold in pharmacies, but it is sold in foreign packaging. I bought a single 30-gram vial and tried it. The actual oil content, I think, was no more than a couple of drops. The rest was some kind of diluting agent. Compared to what was produced in the Consumer Cooperative Institute, well, there was simply no comparison. And these diluted couple of drops cost 50,000 rubles, approximately $16 at the November 1994 exchange rate, equivalent to 20% of the average Russian's monthly income. So what if we didn't buy it abroad, but sold it ourselves? Just the sale of this oil would be enough to raise the whole of Siberia above the poverty level. But how did we ever manage to let go of the technology of our forebears? And here we are sniveling that we live like paupers. Well, okay, I think I'll come up with something all the same. I'll produce the oil myself, and my firm will only get wealthier. I decided I would try a second expedition along the Aube, back up north, using only my headquarters ship, the Patrice Lumumba. I loaded a variety of goods for sale into the hold and turned the film viewing room into a store. I decided to hire a new crew and not invite anyone from my firm. As things stood, my firm's financial situation had worsened while I was distracted with my new interest. 2 weeks later, after leaving Novosibirsk, my security guards reported that they had overheard conversations about the Ringing Cedar, and in their opinion, the newly hired workers included some pretty strange people, to put it mildly. I began summoning individual crew members to my quarters to talk about the forthcoming trek into the taiga. Some of them even agreed to go on a volunteer basis. Others asked for extra pay for this operation, since it was not something that they had agreed to when signing up for work. It was one thing to stay in the comfortable conditions aboard ship, quite another to trek 25 kilometers into the taiga and back, carrying loads of wood. My finances at the time were already pretty tight. I had not planned on selling the cedar. After all, the oldsters had said that it should be given away. Besides, my main interest was not the cedar tree itself, but the secret of how to extract the oil, and of course it would be fascinating to find out all the details connected with it. Little by little, with the help of my security guards, I realized that there would be attempts made to spy on my movements, especially during any time I spent ashore. But for what purpose was unclear. And who was behind the would-be spies? I thought about it and decided that, to be absolutely certain, I would somehow have to outsmart everyone at once.